Welcome. Ron, sit down. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is Wednesday, August 11th, 12:30. Presentation items. Somebody from the city attorney's office in the room? Several of you.
Kinsley Grote from the city attorney's office. Items 1 and 2. Hello? Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. For items 1 and 2, number 1 is the second reading for ordinance 6456. And item number 2 is the resolution that goes along with that ordinance. And it basically establishes the fees that the ordinance says would be transferred from the Rapid City Municipal Code into a resolution.
And item number 3, I had asked the attorney's office to break into separate items so we can vote on each item individually. I see it's going to be one item. How do we make sure we can vote on that individually?
I do not know, and Mr. Landine isn't here, so.
Joel, I have a question for you. Item 3 on the agenda today is one item. I would like it to be able to vote on things individually on Monday night. How do we make sure that happens?
I don't know that you need to separate it into multiple different items, but you can take a vote on each and then the resolution includes those and the amounts funded. I mean, you could certainly change the funding and set it up if the council is in agreement just to vote on each item individually.
Okay. Charlotte, you had a question?
Who came up with this list? Because I don't remember us coming to any kind of consensus on this. There are definitely some things on this that I won't support. And where'd this come from?
It came from the mayor and council leadership. I think everybody understands that this isn't a done deal, but based on discussions, there were projects, and I think it was understood that not everyone supported all the projects and to certain amounts. But just to keep the discussion moving forward to basically get some decisions on the funding. So something had to be proposed. And so the mayor and council president asked that we prepare a resolution and bring it forward to just at least get the discussion going.
And that is correct, Arla. This was when Laura and I had met with everybody last year, kind of the top priorities, and not all of these things were unanimous, but.
Okay, well, I know we'll discuss this on Monday night, so I won't belabor the point, but I just think there's things here that I just can't support, and it seems like all the other choices are missing, and I'd like to see some of those brought back for the listing, at least, as an alternative kind of list that we could look at. The things that are not here are the hardest to see or remember, so I would like 2 things here. I'd also like the alternate list that we didn't vote for, or we didn't come to consensus on. So that's my only request. Thank you.
Richie?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a similar request. I'm looking at this list and I see some things that are missing from the things that I was requesting for also. And then if I can, I'm asking this next question because I don't know the answer, and I'm not trying to debate the issue or anything, but once we get a number established, and right now it's recommending $20 million, how much is left in the undesignated cash? And I'm sorry if I'm catching Pauline out of position here. So and again, I just don't know what the answer is, and I'm not trying to debate this, Ms. Director Assumption, is that how much will be left in the undesignated cash once we go use this number here of $20 million?
So as of the latest Treasury report, there's $36 million in the general fund. If we use 20 million of it, that leaves 16 million, of which about 9.5 million is reserves. So that would leave approximately 6.5 to cash flow the rest of the year, in addition to if there's any use for the 2022 budget.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, since as you were walking in the room, there's an alternative list that has been requested, and I can support that request as well, to have that opportunity to take a look at that secondary list for Monday night. And if it's possible, and I'm not sure who to ask this question to, but if it's possible, to get that list published before Monday night.
And can I ask for clarification, and I apologize for being late, who has that list? Or is it just discussed here? The list that's put together currently was based on conversations that I had with then President Laura Armstrong and Vice President Lance Lehman, and it was based on having conversations with you on what your priorities were, and looking at the ones that had at least 6 people marking that as a priority. That's how this list was created.
I'd have to go back and look at my comments that I made during that separate discussion on it. But one of the things that I would like to see is if we can possibly do something for the bus depot people. The transportation bus drivers were exposed to the COVID, and I would like to see that being placed on the list.
As Pauline mentioned, these items were the things that could pass with a vote, at least at that time. That's why these made this list. When we met with each of you individually, some of you had specific projects that you only supported.
Okay, that's fine, but it's still, I think as Alderwoman Drew suggested, is to see that alternative list. So I think it would be appropriate to have that.
Are you referring to the list that the department directors presented to us?
This is primarily what they gave to us as the directors. And then we as individuals came up with some other alternatives. And that list, as far as I can tell, is not within this list that we have here.
Reach out and give me the list of the items you're discussing, and I can have it added to the agenda, I suppose.
Sure. Yep, that'll be workable. So give me about a day or so, and then I'll get that the alternative suggestions to you.
John Roberts?
Thank you. Question for Joel Landine, real quick, if you don't mind. I have no problem with bringing forward anything and discussing anything, but won't we need to have this noticed before Monday night?
Yeah, I think prior to the meeting, we would need to know what those are. I mean, to some degree, I suppose you could amend it in fund. It's up to you to, it's on the, it is on the agenda that you are going to look at expending this money. Guess theoretically, you could argue that some project that isn't on there could get funded, but obviously if you were to appropriate a significant amount of money to a project that wasn't identified prior to the meeting, that would likely cause
A
controversy.
problem. Yes, absolutely. Is there going to be 2 readings of this or just 1 reading of this?
At this point, it's a resolution.
Okay.
So at that point, that's the other thing. You're not actually appropriating the money. The actual process to appropriate the money would still need to come forward. But I think if you approve a list, if a majority of the council approves a list of projects, then those would start coming forward for funding. So technically, even if you approve it, you could then vote against it at the time it came forward for appropriation. But I think the assumption would be approve a list a majority of you can support, and that when those projects come forward, they'll be funded.
Thank you very much, because like I said, I have no problem. We could bring forward a list of everything that was brought forward and voted up or voted down. I don't care. Can I ask the fire chief a question?
Absolutely.
Jason, so of course, the largest line item here is for station number 1. Few questions. One, when you originally brought this forward, it was $10 million. Now it's $15 million. Can you kind of explain that?
Sure. Best that I can. Cost from our architect and the engineers. And our best guess was between RJ, myself, and Tim Billings on what it would projected cost, and that was based upon the building we were going to do in 16, 17, based upon that and its square footage, and obviously cost has gone up significantly. I had a meeting with several individuals or with as many council members that would show up to kind of go over that in hopes to explain it. But realistically, that's the cost of what it is going to build. And there's nothing in there that's fluff. I wasn't a builder, so my best guesstimate at 10 million was apparently off.
And I want to apologize for not being one of the persons that showed up to that meeting, but it's been an extremely busy summer this summer. My problem with this is I have zero problem whatsoever supporting the fire department, supporting a building, talking to some commercial builders and looking, at what we're doing on the lot, what lot we're doing, and I hate renovating buildings and adding on to buildings unless absolutely necessary. The cost of a new building, I think, would be cheaper than the cost of this renovation. And I have a hard time. I know it's something that's needed. It's needed very badly. I was very much support in buying that lot across the street from you, and we did many years ago to build a new building on, but unfortunately that didn't happen, and there's something on that lot right now. And I know there's been a lot of people looking for ways over the years to acquire the property next door to you, so, I just see a small lot with a building that 10 years from now we're going to be looking at wanting to replace again. And that's what worries me. I mean, we're looking at a significant amount of money, and it's just, I don't think we're putting the money where we should be putting the money. And I'm not saying I don't support a new station. I absolutely do. I have for 10 years. I just think that this project necessarily isn't the right project. So, and then on to the fire training tower, which I do completely support. And I will support the $1.5 million. My question is, and I don't know if you can answer this, Joel can answer this, but we do know that we've got some issues that we're working on in the background on that. And if that money comes back to the city, will that money go back into the general fund? Will it go back into this fund? How will that money be allocated if we do get the money eventually from the other party?
I think that ultimately is up to the council. I mean, it would make sense to look at, since it came out of this, if there's another project you want to fund, or it would just basically become, I think, and Pauline can correct me, but it would just be additional undesignated cash whenever it comes in until you direct what you want done with it.
That is correct. We would, more than likely, we would put it back into the general fund to start with, and if we have the undesignated cash that you guys want to use somewhere else, that's more than...
I want to get that in the record so it doesn't get lost in the process, because this could be many, many years before this happens, and the majority of us on this council may not be here at that point. So anyway, That's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Pauline, you wanted to jump in for a comment?
I was just going to say, one of the simple solutions, I know Lance and Laura had a list of what your guys' priorities were, or what your thoughts were on how to spend this money, and we can just attach that as a secondary attachment to this item. That way everyone is aware of what everyone else's priorities were.
Or Greg first, if you don't mind, John.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to follow up on what Darla and Richie talked, and what everybody's talking about here. There was the proposals by all of the department directors that I would like to have an opportunity to bring up the fire station the police station in Ward 3, the precinct, the Civic Center proposal regarding a couple of different items. There was an opportunity capture fund that the finance director brought up. The public works director brought up some needs at the water treatment plant, and also a potential capital fund for future municipal expansion. And to kind of follow along with that, I think we would be remiss if we didn't discuss if any of this money can be used for street repairs, because I think it's universal around this city that people are not happy with the condition of some of the streets, and I think that we have to at least discuss that before we go any further. So I'd like those items to be part of the discussion on Monday night, and if the finance director is going to attach those initial proposals, I think that would be sufficient, but I want to make sure that I at least emphasize those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. John, did you want to? No. Any other discussion on this item? Go to the fire department.
Item number 4 is to sign a joint powers agreement between the department and the state of South Dakota for South Dakota Task Force 1. It's our rescue group that we put together. It's made up of hazardous materials, heavy and light rescue. We have an agreement with them. They provide some funding for training and some of the equipment that we provide, and then we can be deployed outside of Rapid City to help the region and the state. So that's just solidifying the agreement that we've been working under for years. Number 5 is the LEPC grant, $4,332. It's to purchase a device that will aid in calibrating some of our monitors. It's a 50-50 match, so we put in 50% and they put in the other 50% to buy the device. The only thing we have to do after that is purchase the device if they give us $4,000. So the money's coming out of our hazardous materials fund that we already have established and budgeted for. The last one is with the community health worker grant for our ambulance service up to the amount of $50,000. It's to send some of our individuals, specifically our mobile medics, to a program, a class called the community health worker. It's a newer certification for individuals in the state, allows them to work directly with the community and basically doing community health outside of what our mobile medics are doing now. And there's some benefits to this in that there's a potential to be able to go out and visit patients and being reimbursed for it rather than what we're doing now at this point not, and that would have been through Medicaid. So it's no match, no requirements afterwards other than that money is going to be expended to send those folks to become certified in that.
Thank you, Jason. Richie Nordstrom?
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Culberson, on number 5 for that LAPC, I am the liaison to the LAPC, and we had a short conversation on it, but to make the actual vote on it, I have a municipal league commitment on that same day, so I will try to do my best to lobby the group to let them know that I'm fully supportive of this as well. So if there's anything else I should be aware of, just send me an email and I'll forward that to the group as well. Thank you. I yield.
Mr. Beegler, it's your turn.
All right, thank you very much. The three items that I've got here, 7, 8, and 9, are standard lease agreements for these organizations that conduct their organizational programs at city facilities. These are, as I said, standard agreements with the Rapid City Midget Football Association for use of a small shed at the Star of the West complex. The Rushmore Hockey and Black Hills Figure Skating Clubs are for long-term rentals of ice time at the Roosevelt Ice Arena.
Darla?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for Jeff Beegler. A while back, we got a presentation from another younger hockey team. I think they were the Badlands hockey team or something like that. Are they included? Did they ask for this? Do they know they should ask for this?
Thanks for the question. Yes, the Badlands Sabres is who you were speaking with, and they're a junior hockey organization. We already have an agreement with them to use the Roosevelt Ice Arena, so they're all set to start their season here coming up this fall. And if you'll go out there, they already have some of their signage up. They've got their logos in the ice, and we're full steam ahead on that organization using that facility. So this use does not conflict with the use that they are going to require for their program.
I love hearing that, and I just didn't know where we're at with them, if that was going forward, and I fully support them getting that, but it's outside of this scope, so I just didn't know if they were in there. So thanks a lot. I yield.
Mr. Gilbert?
My item is a simple change in our method that we use to communicate with the airport. We're going to go from a leased line that we use with Midco to a leased line with SDN due to the bandwidth requirements to support some of the traffic that we have between here and the airport. This is budgeted in our fund and will be replacing a line, so the budget will be fine.
Sounds good. Thank you. Pauline?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 11 is standard for our volunteers to be covered by workers' compensation. 12, most of that is for grass and weeds. There is one that is also for debris removal. And then on number 29, ice and swim center need additional funds. And then they're also doing some corrections to some other Parks and Rec change funds that were incorrect previously.
Item 29. Dale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Items 13 through 20 are public works items, and I think we have one at the end as well. Item 13 and 14 are standard project change orders. One is for the downtown lighting project, and one is a final change order for a pavement rehab project that was completed this summer. Item 15 is a resolution appointing the Public Works Director as a representative to regional nonprofit corporation. As you may recall, Cheryl Chapman came to this working session a number of months ago to give you an overview of West Dakota Water Development's desire to pursue Missouri River water, and due to some future use permits that are held both by the West Dakota Water Development District and the City of Rapid City. Subsequent discussion with West Dakota Water Development, as well as many other public entities, municipalities, tribal water districts on the West River, and guidance from an attorney hired by West Dakota Water Development District. They're patterning this nonprofit the same way that they did Lewis and Clark Water a number of decades ago. So this is the first step in organizing to be able to get the ball rolling on investigating the
feasibility, if you will, to get Missouri River water to western South Dakota. And as part of that, the request is to appoint a board of directors. The group that met believed that Rapid City should have a seat on the board, so this is the item to do that. Consulted with our attorney's office about who would be the best person. Obviously, the Public Works Director makes the most sense, and I believe the mayor would be the backup to that. So if you have any questions, I'm here. Carla can speak to that as well, but there won't be any large significant financial requests probably in the very near future or even in the midterm regarding this particular nonprofit organization. Moving on, item 16. As a project, as you may recall, we opened bids twice on the installation for boilers out at our water rec facility. Did not receive bids either time that we bid the project. So with our consultant and a local contractor that was interested in the job, we were able to find a mechanical contractor that would do the work. So we've negotiated a contract, if you will, to get this work done. So there's a tight time frame on it. Obviously, we need to get some of the work done this fall. Our heavy boiler season is during the winter. Obviously, we need to keep the bugs warm out there. So this is very important, and we were fortunate enough to find a mechanical contractor that would get the work done for us. Item 17 is our change order that we have with Veolia. As you recall, we do a household hazardous waste pickup, typically at the fairgrounds. We weren't able to do it last year, so we had to amend, change the contract. We're going to do it every other year. That was always the plan, but we had to skip a year due to COVID and other things. So we'll be doing that this year. I believe the date is October 16th, and then we'll be looking forward to doing that again in the year 2023. Item 18, it's a resolution to adjust some maximum connection fees for some source water protection projects. So these are sanitary sewer projects that we've done over the last decade. Those projects were subsidized by grants, and then the rest of the financial package for those were through our enterprise fund. So our sewer enterprise fund paid for that, and as people hook up, then they pay a share, and that was capped at $7,500 back in, I believe, the year 2010. Certainly with the increased cost of construction, we want to lift those ceilings a little bit to help cover the costs that our existing customer base expended to get these projects done. And then moving on to 19 is a seek proposals for engineering services, additional work. We've done a previous phase up on Signal Hill, so we'll be reconstructing a portion of Kellogg Place, Highland Court, maybe a little bit of Marquette, and some of Signal Drive. So it's about a $3.5 million project up there, driven primarily by the condition of our utilities up on Signal Hill. And then item 20 is a sidewalk variance request. As I understand it, there was a previous request on this property that was approved by the city council a number of years ago. They are expanding their building, therefore they meet the threshold to install sidewalks. Again, this is a rural section. Sidewalks probably aren't within at least a half mile of here, so staff's recommendation is to approve. And I'll stand by for any questions on items 13 through 20.
Darla?
Thank you. On item 15, I would just feel a little better if the mayor was named as the liaison replacement in that ordinance. You know, I noticed there was no position that was named, and if it's going to be the mayor, I just soon have it part of the ordinance that we expect him to be there if you can't.
I believe that he was named in there, but let me take a quick look. Carla knows this right off the top of her head since she did all the hard work on it.
The resolution says that the Public Works Director shall serve. If the Public Works Director position is open, the mayor can serve or appoint somebody to do that.
Okay, I guess it was the appointment thing that I had a little problem with, because it doesn't really say that the mayor can serve in Dale's place. He can appoint someone else. So I think that language could be cleared up a little bit so that it is the mayor.
Are you talking about if Dale's position is open or if Dale is unable to go to
If Dale is unable to go.
to a meeting or
Yeah.
to serve?
Yeah.
Well, I would just point out that Dale may be beneficial to let like the Assistant Public Works Director go or somebody in lieu of the mayor, and frankly, their schedule probably accommodates it better than the mayor's schedule might. But ultimately, we all answer to the mayor and the executive. So, I mean, the mayor's going to have to be on board with whoever is
So
designated.
Dale would have the ability to appoint someone? I mean, I don't read it that way.
No, I don't believe if I'm just not able to go to a meeting, someone may go in my stead, but they're there just to collect information. They wouldn't be a replacement board member.
Okay, I understand that. This, to me, after listening to Cheryl, is a really important board, and I just wanted to know what the process was if you can't make it, and it's still kind of fuzzy to me.
I think if Dale couldn't make it to a meeting, he could send somebody in his place, but that person would not be able to vote as a board member. That person would be Dale.
I'm fine with that, and then take the mayor out of the equation.
The mayor, if the Public Works Director position is open, let's say Dale retires, and there's nobody serving in that position or not even an interim, the mayor can designate somebody to go until the Public Works Director is appointed. So that's the mayor's role there.
Okay, Carla, I get that, but if it could be somehow written out a little bit more, I mean that, you know, if he's gone, the mayor can appoint somebody else. I know that's kind of tedious and, you know, in the weeds and all that stuff, but I would just feel better because I really like Cheryl's presentation, and I'd like to know that somebody is trustworthy to go to that meeting. So that's it.
Well, if I may.
Sure.
Yes, this is a very, very important thing. The meetings that will be held will be far enough in the future that I'm going to build my schedule around them. I'm not going to miss a meeting.
Okay.
If I unfortunately get hit by our nicely driven bus fleet that we have in town here, then the mayor can appoint someone to go in my stead.
Okay, well, I don't mean to be picky, but I guess I'm being that way because I just feel that it could be in somehow clearer language for me. And, you know, it's not all about me, but in this case, I don't know, I just feel that I would feel better if it was a little bit more clear. So that's all I'm asking.
Richie?
Thank you, Mr. President. This question will go for Director Tech, if I may. Dale, once this gets established and meetings are held, do you know if minutes will be kept of those meetings?
Absolutely. As part of the Articles of Incorporation, this board will have to follow, I'm assuming, all the open meeting laws of the state, and so yeah, there will be minutes and official records kept, I believe, of the proceedings.
Thank you. What I'm interested in is getting some kind of a report back from that. And then my initial thought was having the minutes being available. Would that be better than a liaison report, or I'll stand for suggestions.
I think the city appointee to this board can certainly provide updates at appropriate intervals. There's going to be this thing is going to move more at a snail's pace than at a sprint. So certainly, when meetings are held, I can provide a brief update, however the council would like to see that.
I'm open to suggestions from the rest of the council members, but I'm just curious as to what takes place, and because if it is going at a snail's pace, I'm okay with getting a report every now and then, but I think this being such a critical venture, I think it's somewhat behooves us to be up to speed on what is taking place, what the current events are, and so on.
Sure.
Like that. So whatever works the best way to minutes or a liaison report, something. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Richie. Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to maybe have Joel clarify something here, because this is not a state board, so they're not going to be under the same rules of state meetings and stuff. This is a nonprofit corporation, so they can do whatever they want according to their bylaws. So has somebody read those to address Richie and Darla's concerns, and maybe I think some of the other council about minutes and stuff like that? They don't necessarily have to, they don't have to have an open meeting, they don't have to take minutes, and I'm assuming because that's probably part of the reason for the,
I haven't really looked at this, so I'm going to defer to Carla.
I'm sorry?
I haven't looked at this, so I'm going to defer to Carla about the structure of it. She indicated she had
The nonprofit has yet to be established. They're just in the communication processes, but they have drafted some articles of incorporation that talk about how the nonprofit will be run. You're right that this won't be subject to open meetings because it's not a sovereign body under the statutes. So that just means that those laws won't apply, but I think all of the entities that are involved will be governmental organizations that, have some taxpayer funds that, so the mechanism of providing transparency will be, I think, addressed in the Articles of Incorporation and handled by the individual representatives to the nonprofit like Dale was talking about.
I'm just making sure that Richie and Darla and everybody else on this council is very clear that it's a nonprofit, they can do what they want. We're just participating with bringing in our public works guy and then for the future, but all their conversations they can handle the way they want. But if we can make those articles of incorporation available to the council so they can have a better understanding of what to expect, because don't want to go in there having one thought process and then go, oh, this is not the rules, because I guarantee you it's not the rules. That's why they do this, so they're not subject to those open meetings rules, so, which can be good or bad or whatever, however a person wants to look at it. But when my colleagues have a question that I'm sure there's reasonings for their questions, and so if we could get those articles of incorporation before Monday.
I have some draft articles. They haven't been, we're still at the early, they're still at the early form of forming the nonprofit.
And also all we're doing is just basically establishing a procedure to allow a liaison, so, okay, that's fine then.
That's right.
As long as they know. So I'm good with that as long as they're good with it. Okay, thank you.
Dale, you want to cover item 30? Since
I sure can. I don't, let's see, there was an exception request for a installation of a driveway on Blaine Avenue, 1018 Blaine. There was no site plan given. We denied that exception request due to the alignment of the carport that's on the side of the house. We believe it's going to be real close to the crosswalk that goes across Blaine. That is a school route, obviously General Beetle School's right there, so we have concerns. I guess if this board is inclined to approve the exception request, it would be helpful if we had a site plan that identified the actual location and dimensions of this approach. So I don't know if anyone's here. Mr. Wolter, if he's in the audience today, it appears not to be here, so I guess we'll wait and see what happens Monday night.
thank you, Dale. Civic Center items, Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my first time at the big table, so figuring this out. Thank you. My two items are linked together. Just to remind council members, if you may recall, in the meeting where city directors came asking or pitching ideas for surplus funds, on that pitch, I had a pitch for a center hung scoreboard. It's an upgrade from end hung scoreboards in New Summit Arena to a center hung scoring system and extended ribbon boards to go with it. The reason we were doing that is because that upgraded system will allow us to compete stronger with other venues like the Premier Center in Sioux Falls for sporting events and tournaments and things like that. And it also gave us an upswing in opportunities in corporate sales and sponsorship sales and things like that. Also, if you recall, I told you at the time I might have another plan, another idea than these funds for it. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. That other plan is for us to, the monument to pay for that upgrade. It's $1,056,206. That is something we can handle. We know better now that we can handle that through our upgraded corporate sales and our sponsorship sales because of the center hung and boards. So I think this is a much better use of money and putting it to good use. So we're asking for a loan from the city for at up to 3% interest to pay for that in 10 years. The item number 2 is linked to this in the sense that if we do this, then I will need to change the Mortensen contract, which is a city contract, to add this into their scope of work.
Thank you, Craig. Greg?
Thank you, Chair. I've had the opportunity to be the liaison with the Civic Center Board last year and this year, and I continue to be impressed by they just bird dog the opportunities to make a profit, create a profit, and also to cut expenses. They've come up with some very inventive methods. Here's just one example. If they can change their contract to get the center hung scoreboard, it will basically pay for itself, and we save $1 million there on what would be something that we'd really need for an up-to-date modern facility. And the efficiencies that they go through, I'm just really impressed by the way they, Mr. Baltzer and his staff, he manages his staff and the Civic Center, and I think this is a no-brainer for us to go ahead with this. Thank you.
Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I may have looked at this once, but what's the fund SAB 28?
That's actually a
Is
fund that.
Lance's checkbook?
What's that? Lance's checkbook?
Lance's, yeah.
No. It's a fund that we use for special assessments when we do sidewalk projects or water projects or sewer projects that are assessed projects. That's what that fund is used for, and it builds up a balance. And so the money is there to be able to use it. We've started other funds with this. We've also loaned, I think it was the stormwater fund. We loaned them startup money out of this fund that they are repaying. And so this is not something that's out of the norm of what we have done in the past.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you, Craig. Joel, another item?
Could I add that on Monday, I'm going to support this project. I hope that my comrades will do that as well. Comrades, yeah, yeah. Yeah, anyway. But I think this is a good project. I think they've got it figured out. And I hope other council members will support as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Darla. Joel, there's another item I missed from the attorney's office earlier when your team was up there.
This item is just a resolution to obtain a property along Sheridan Lake Road that has a tax deed that the county has issued We will need we would like it for right-of-way purposes. It's already burdened by a couple drainage easements, so it makes sense for us to buy the tax deed and obtain the property in this way.
Thank you. Vicky, 2425?
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 24 is a request to authorize the signature from the mayor and finance officer to perform a study, and Kip Harrington is here to give you a brief description of that.
Good afternoon, Kip Harrington, Long Range Planning. So this study is called the Campbell Street Structure Multimodal Routing Study, and the Campbell Street Structure is the bridge that goes up and over the railroad tracks. DOT is scheduled to replace that bridge in about the year 2027, so prior to their design, we would like to perform this study to figure out the best way to move vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists through that area. If you've been there, you know that St. Patrick Street, St. Joseph Street, Campbell Street, and the railroad tracks all converge in that area, which leads to some challenges in moving people through that and trying to figure out the most efficient way to get everybody through there. If you go out there today, there are 0 bicycle or pedestrian facilities, and if you were to try to cross that bridge, not in a motor vehicle, you'd be taking your life in your own hands. So that is something that will be incorporated into the design of the structure when it's replaced. This is just a study to determine the best way to get people through there. Those recommendations will be incorporated into the design of the structure, and this is an MPO planning study. 81.95% of the funds come from MPO planning funds. The rest is a city match, and it is all within the community development budget.
Thanks, Kip.
Thank you.
And then item number 25 comes to us from the Historic Preservation Committee, and this will be a brief description from Sarah Hansel.
Good afternoon. Item 25 is a historic review which requires final approval by the City Council. This is a residential structure in the West Boulevard Historic District located at 1116 9th Street. The proposed project includes replacing historic siding and windows. The Historic Preservation Commission has reviewed this project at their meeting, evaluated all of the factors relevant to this, this specific situation, and they are recommending approval.
Thank you. Item 26, pretty self-explanatory. Any questions from my colleagues? Or 27 for that matter? Item 28, Joel, can you, or Carla?
Item 28 is an ordinance that would prohibit the smoking in public of marijuana. This was brought up when we discussed the medical cannabis ordinance back in June, that there were some concerns among council members about smoking in public. And so this ordinance would prohibit public smoking of marijuana in certain public places, including on public parks and on city property, in elementary and on property where there's an elementary or secondary school, places where the smoking of tobacco is prohibited, which would be in any place of public employment. We'll all remember when public smoking of tobacco became illegal, all of those places that no longer would allow it. We're piggybacking on that and saying you can also smoke marijuana there, as well as on public transportation and in correctional facilities. It's pretty straightforward. It would be a city ordinance violation, a Class 2 misdemeanor if you violated this ordinance.
Thank you, Carla. Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this parallel our alcohol consumption verbiage, or is it something that coincides with the state's rules?
For alcohol consumption, is that what you said?
Well, I guess I had a two-part question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The first question would be, does this parallel our alcohol consumption? You know, no public drinking, whatever.
The first provision, in any public place or place that is open to the public, that language is what is used for public consumption of alcohol. So yes, in some ways we're kind of combining different areas in different places.
So we're in tune with what the state's doing then too, to be consistent?
With the state, what the state does about alcohol. They haven't done anything related to public smoking of marijuana.
Then my other question would be is, are we going to issue permits for people to close the street and smoke pot?
This would prohibit the public smoking of marijuana in any public place, including right-of-way. So that would be something that the city wouldn't be able to, that would not be something you could give an exception to,
They,
unless you wrote it into the ordinance.
they can do it for alcohol, but they won't be able to do it for marijuana.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Richie?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Cushman, the question I keep getting asked is the public parks. Two-part question is on the smoking in public parks. Do we need signage in those parks? Is my first question, to notify the public that it's not allowed in there.
This would apply to public parks, and I think signage would be an option, but it's not required to notify people. I
Okay.
think we could certainly cite them even if there wasn't a sign.
Okay, all right. And then no, that takes care of the second question too. Yeah, because the folks that were asking me the questions about smoking in public places, specifically the parks, is the enforcement side of it. So I think that addresses that as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Richie. Darla?
Thank you. My question is, how about anybody that can be grandfathered in, like a cigar bar where they already allow smoking, a vape place or hookah bar, where they're already allowing smoking there? I think this is, I don't know if it's addressed by what you're talking about, because they're already smoking.
I think they would fall within a public place or a place that is open to the public, which is section 1 of the ordinance. So a place that is open to the general public. So that would apply to vape shops or the cigar bars, of which there's just one. But
There's a lot of hookah places.
Those are open to the public, so you can't smoke there. And
Okay.
you actually can't smoke tobacco in the hookah bar either. So, oh, that's wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
You won't be able to smoke marijuana in the hookah bar.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I don't see anybody else with comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is. Oh.
Done with the agenda. Public comment. Start with Mr. Jeffries.
Hi, thanks, Council. Kit Jeffries with Dakota Cannabis Consulting, and great question, Ms. Drew. I actually had a follow-up question. Would that prohibit an establishment who has an outdoor designated smoking area for tobacco as well, since it's not prohibited indoor? So if like a bar or restaurant or some other establishment that has an outdoor facility that they say, yeah, you can go smoke out on the patio, would that prohibit that as well? And then just clarification on what the penalty would be for the ordinance is one of my comments. Just wanted to know. I saw it referenced section 1.12.010, which is a designated continuing violations, which it looks to me that it's a $500 fine and up to 30 days in jail or both. But just wanted clarification on that, and that was all I had. Thanks.
Thank you, Kit. Mr. Derby?
Thank you, Mr. President, Council. I'm Mike Derby, State Representative for District 34 Rapid City, covers West Rapid City and part of North Rapid. And I just, as a member of the Summer Study Committee on Adult Use Marijuana, I just want to track any legislation locally or statewide on marijuana, so that's why I'm here today. And I thought I'd just spend a minute, give you a high level, is it appropriate, just give you a high level view of where we're at on the committee?
Your time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. So on a federal level, Senator Schumer, Booker, and Wyden have introduced the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, and that is currently open for stakeholders to provide comment until September 1st. So that's on the federal level, and obviously that's to legalize and decriminalize marijuana on a federal level. On a statewide level, we're waiting for the South Dakota Supreme Court to give us a ruling on Amendment A. I've quit betting on when that would be because I thought it would be before July 1st, but the Supremes work on their own timeline. So that has had an impact on our summer study committee that I'm on. And I was appointed to a 5-person work study committee. Senator Duhamel, Senator Rush, Representative Chafee, Chairman Bartles, and myself are on a 5-person work study, and we're actually drafting legislation as we speak. We had a meeting yesterday. The state's attorneys gave their input. I'm drafting kind of an omnibus bill for the committee that would talk about everything from growing to manufacturing to labeling to advertising and everything in between. And that I'll be presenting that tomorrow to the work study committee, and then that'll go to the full committee, and you'll hear more about it then. So a couple paths. Obviously, the South Dakota Supreme Court can provide a ruling that upholds Amendment A as constitutional. We as legislators can write a bill, introduce it during session, and then another path is the proponents are currently working on another petition drive and a ballot measure for November of 22, and all of these are running in parallel. And so we just kind of take it day by day, but we do know that if we as legislators introduce something that's palatable to the proponents, they have an opportunity to withdraw the proposed amendment 120 days prior to November vote. So they've got that going over on that path. We've got the legislative path, and we've got the federal path. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Derby. Just a reminder to my colleagues, we have a marijuana working session Friday at 3 upstairs, Joel?
Yes.
I want a point of privilege, please.
Real quickly, Darla.
Yeah. My question is to Pauline. I sent her something today, a question. And the reason I did that is because we have this huge project going on for East St. Pat or West St. Pat, where it goes into my ward. And I just want to, when these things happen, especially in the West Boulevard area, they tend to have a lot of water line breakage and those kinds of things that then I hear about. They blame them on the product or the project. And I just wanted to know how many people are taking advantage of the insurance that the city has offered.
That's actually a Dale Tech question.
Okay.
That's coming from Public Works.
Okay.
That's a great question. What you're referring to is our Service Line Warranties of America program, and I'm actually going to defer to Shannon. She has a better idea of how many people have signed up for it. She might not have an exact number, but she's going to be a lot closer than I.
You have them?
I have it as well.
Oh, I have it too.
So I can actually send you the most recent stats that we've gotten from them that breaks down how many policies are currently in place, as well as how much has been played out in claims. And they're working on updating that because we'll be doing another mailing in the fall to encourage people to sign up.
Thank you, because that's another thing I wanted to see, a little bit more awareness of this program, because it's great, and it's not that expensive, and as many of us know, any of those things that run from your house to the curb stop is your responsibility, and a lot of people don't get that, and I get calls, and when we're looking at West Boulevard with their older lines, you know, they're gonna, they should consider this. So, yeah, if you could get me that, I'd really appreciate it, and that's it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Darla. And we are adjourned, everyone. Thank you.
You are the last party in the conference. You